subject I will speak about now is Kabbalah. Now, it's all over. Kabbalah, Kabbalah, Kabbalah. Everywhere you look, people are speaking about Kabbalah. And it became very popular in Western society. So people think of Kabbalah and they think of magic and all different aspects of the spiritual realm. And I would bet that not much of it is connected to what Kabbalah really is. And it is something very secret. However, it's Kabbalah is connected to the Torah. According to the Jewish tradition, a person can't study Kabbalah or practice it until he becomes immersed and proficient in many of the aspects of the Torah. And I would compare it to flying a kite. Let's say you launch a kite and you have a string and you're holding the kite and the wind is taking it and you're in control. And so it's flying beautifully, and if a wind comes, you could pull it in, you could let it go, and when you're finished, you bring it back. So that would be flying a kite, and it would be compared to studying Kabbalah while being immersed in the Torah. And that gives you control over the kite, that the Kabbalah and the spiritual aspect can be reeled back in, and you can be back on the earth. Now, if someone were to fly a kite without a string, he would just launch a kite, and it would just go up in the air, and it would be flying, and it would just disappear. It would go higher and higher, and further, and you would lose it. So that's the example here has to do with studying Kabbalah without being immersed in Torah, meaning not having your feet on the ground. And that, we feel, is a dangerous way to go about it. So, the word Kabbalah actually means to receive, the reception. It comes from the word lekabel. And we know that a person can give over, and a person can receive. So we need a balance. Now it's interesting that women are much more receptive, generally speaking, than men are. And women have a certain nature and a certain way about them that they're more receptive. And it's funny that the one who has to study Kabbalah in the Jewish tradition, who's commanded to study Kabbalah, is the man. And it's because he is much more of the one who puts out and puts energy into something. And a man has a tendency to become much more macho, as a term that we use in Western society. And so he's always putting out until he runs out. Whereas a woman is much more receptive. So a man has to learn this other part of his nature, which he has, and he has to become receptive. He has to work on himself. So that's the one who is commanded to learn Kabbalah. Now, just to give you a short anatomy lesson of Kabbalah, is made up of 10 sfirot. The word is sfirot, and it's close to the word sphere. Sphere, as you know, is like a ball, something round, and the world is made up of round things. Whether you look at the planets, or whether you look microscopically at molecules that are round with a nucleus and orbits of electrons going around them. So the world is made up of spheres. And in Kabbalah there are 10 of them. And I'll just give you the names, even though it's a little bit difficult to really pinpoint the right translation. But one is crown, another is wisdom, then intelligence, loving kindness, power, beauty, eternity, majesty, foundation, and kingdom. So these are the 10 Sfirot. The names in Hebrew are more specific, and they would really encapsulate the meaning of each Sphira. And it's just not the anatomy that will really get you to understand anything about this. I just want to mention some of the aspects of it, but it's very difficult to talk about this in a short time. But Kabbalah is part of Judaism, and it's really based upon the principle, first of all, that God is one. There's one God, He's absolute, and He created the world. But the fact that God is one really brings on some very intriguing questions. Number one is, how could the one God create the creation of so many? Another question would be, how could the one God interact on a continual basis with the multiplicity that exists in the world? And another question would be, how could the multiplicity or the many exist in the first place? Right? So there are paradoxes going on in the world, and there's no way to answer these questions, but they have to be asked. And if any subject required more study, it would be the Kabbalah, and so in order to go and to reach other levels in spiritual growth, this is one area to study in. But I recommend that one looks up some masters in the Kabbalah in order to study it, and to realize that anyone who goes into the Kabbalah needs to be immersed, first of all, in the Torah and the acts of the Torah. So this has just been a short piece on the elements of Kabbalah, reminding you that this is Avraham Moskowitz of Tehillim Cards, who has brought you some of this information, and I hope that you will go further in your spiritual quest. Thank you.